everybody. How you doing? What's going on? Tell me what's going on, Gene and Iggy.
Hey Ann, how are you?
Hi.
Nice to see everybody. We're excited tonight. We have a really amazing panel tonight. We're going to talk about social media. That's what's going on. There's artists need to know how to make this happen. They need to understand the nuances and not be afraid of it. So we say that
it takes a lot of time. So and we need the time to paint. So it's good to kind of figure out what practices are best so that we can get the most for our words out there.
Yeah, like how do you manage to market yourselves while finding time to make your work? We've already talked about the cost of being an artist and how you manage costs and sacrifices. And we've talked about, oh my God, this is our third one. What did we talk about the first time?
We talked about structures, right, and how to set things up, and right, how do you go from your starting point of being an artist to kind of creating the business.
So this is what we're doing. We're talking to people smarter than us about how to be a professional artist, how to create a career. And social media is definitely one of those things that are necessary. And we have amazing guests with us tonight that we will introduce to you. We have Angela Young and where is she at? Jessie
Prue.
Prue, thank you. Jessie Prue, I didn't practice that enough. Jessie Prue from Artserve. And then we have Nicole Martinez from Culture Conductor. And we're going to ask some questions tonight about how to do this because they are professionals. And I know that Ed's probably going to mention there's a little Q&A box down there. I'm going to take the job away. There's a little Q&A box down there that you can use to ask questions because toward the end of this, we really just want this to be a conversation. Ed will ask questions that you can pose through Facebook Live or through the little Q&A box.
And it's not just me, but we have our awesome producer, Ryan, here, who will also be monitoring the chat on Zoom and Facebook. And Ryan, I just have to say, before we get started, background, it looks fantastic. Where'd you get those pieces?
These are original pieces by Jackie Rosen for Rosen Fine Arts.
Very nice.
Woo-woo.
They're beautiful.
Yes.
Check it out.
Awesome. Nice. Do the Vanna White. So ladies, okay, so we want to ask them to first introduce yourselves.
Introduce yourselves, and we will have a couple of questions to get started with, but first let the audience know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so Angela, why don't you go first? And I know you and Jessie work together, so don't step on Jessie's answer, but Angela, I mean, you guys probably do that all the time. You probably do those questions kind of like the way we do, because this is how we work. But why don't you tell us about who you are and what you do?
Well, I will step on Jessie's toes because I'm allowed to do that, and I will speak for us. Hi, everybody. My name is Angela, and my counterpart, Jessie. We are with Artserve magazine. We are co-founders of the publication and have been doing so since 2012, covering editorial and topics on arts, culture, business, and education. And we've learned a few things along the way that we'd be happy to share with everybody tonight.
Okay. And Jessie, do you have more to add to that?
Sure. Angela and I are both cousins. I don't know if anybody knows that. We're family by marriage, so we're all up in each other's business all the time. We're doing business all the time. Angela has a background in theater. I have a background in graphic design. I went to school for media arts and animation, and we were both previous teachers before becoming publishers.
Thank you. And you know what? We're married. We're a family by marriage too. So that's perfect.
You understand the struggles.
Yes. Yeah. All the time, the knowing each other's business, we totally get it. Nicole, why don't you talk a little bit about you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Martinez, and I am the founder and director of a cultural creative marketing services firm named Culture Conductor. some of the organizations I'm super honored and proud to work with are and have been Fountainhead Residency, the Frost Science Museum, the Bakehouse Art Complex, the Museum of Art and Design at MDC. And I'm also a freelance culture writer, and my writing has appeared in Art News, the Art Newspaper, Cultured Magazine, Art Basel Magazine, and our local favorites like Art Burst Miami and the Miami Herald.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very cool. That's
So
awesome.
our first question was really going to be, and we got a little bit of background about this. If you started as an artist, what medium or media you were using, what discipline, or if you have some sort of practice within the arts, because you're so involved with them, you know, how did you come to being a part of this art world?
Yeah, like why do you focus on the arts? Or do you only focus on the arts?
You can start, Nicole.
Okay, sure. So I came into the arts, I think, mostly because I was a dancer for the majority of my life, and when I finished school, I lived abroad in Buenos Aires, and the vibrancy of their cultural scene is such that I felt very much drawn to it, and so. I was very much experiencing the city through the arts and writing about it, you know, not as an insider, but rather as an outsider, which I thought was a really great way to learn the city. And when I came back, I started working at the Perez Art Museum, and I started freelancing then as a cultural journalist. And I support the arts, I think, because I very much consider myself an artist. You know, I'm a dancer, I'm a writer, but I'm also, you know, very drawn to what artists do, and visual artists in particular. I think that they have a really unique way of viewing the world, and really take us out of our context to really kind of think about things in ways that we don't normally get to. And so that's why I'm very passionate about supporting them in that way. And I do obviously do sometimes work across industries, right? I think that when you work in the arts, there's a lot of overlap with other industries like real estate or, you know, hospitality, and health and lodging, travel, and so forth. So my expertise does span a little bit of a lot of different industries, but the arts are certainly my focus, and what I feel the most passionate about supporting.
Thank you. And then obviously Angela and Jesse, you're called Art Hive, so I would imagine your work focuses on the arts.
Yes.
But why? Now, you did mention a little bit there was some background in the arts.
Yeah. Theater and graphic design.
So who wants to talk about why you focus on the arts, and then we'll move into, you know, how you use your skills to promote the arts and to work with social media. You know, we'll move into the meat of the conversation. But
Angela, you want to start?
Well, like, I'll start. As Jessica had stated, our background is both in education. I taught kindergarten, if you can believe it. And Jessica did arts, and she taught her students graphic design. So we had that common late 20s freak out that sometimes people have when you say, what am I going to do with my life? So we had that some years back, and we decided that we wanted to start a publication, and both of us having a background in the arts, mine in theater and Jessica's in graphic design, we just started with that. And now, you know, essentially here we are today. And we knew that making a publication about our community was very important to us, and was something that we felt was a need. And we always try to do the best to serve our community as much as we can through our publication. Our magazine is about arts and culture, but we also branch off into other topics such as education and business and technology, something that a lot of people can relate to, because sometimes people aren't artists themselves, but they're just creative minds. And that's the kind of content we focus on. We also, in addition to working on our magazine, Jessica and I are fortunate enough to also host a TV show called Art Adventures of the Palm Beaches, where we're able to, up in Palm Beach County, focus on arts and culture specifically to the creatives in that area. So that's a really exciting thing to highlight how amazing our community is, and using that platform to do so. Anything I missed, Jessica? We're usually together, so this is a dynamic. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that. So like Angela mentioned, we use multiple platforms in order to connect with our community, sometimes specific areas and sometimes nationally, depending on what artists we have highlighted, what celebrities we are covering, because we like to cover not only creatives, but creatives who are doing more than everyone else. What kind of conscious aspect do they have? What are they contributing to the world? And to kind of integrate the social media subject so we can get rolling into the meat, like you said.
Yeah.
We really try to engage on our social media platforms with the community to see what it is that they need, what it is that they're lacking, and how we can serve any way that we can in order to make their lives easier too, because being creatives, we know a lot of the struggles that they're going through. And it's incredibly important to be reaching out on social media now more than ever to connect with people, because, you know, the world still has to keep moving and business still has to keep going. And we all are luckily able to adapt together. So I think a lot of the conversation should be about not focusing on the negative things about social media, but more so the positive things that can come out of spending your time on social media. Maybe not so much focusing on the drama that we see every day, but making more positive connections with people, with real people.
Yeah.
Great. So our first question really in terms of the meat of the work is how, what tools or what practices can we share with artists that they will need to be, you know, proficient in social media? What is a good step to start with? Is there a platform that's better for one type of work than another? Or is there a process in doing this and getting people to kind of look at your social media account and begin to have a relationship with them?
Nicole, do you want to start? Because I don't want to rattle too much off with me and Angela.
Yeah, sure. So I think that when it comes to social media, especially when you're already an artist and you probably feel like you're already putting a lot of your creativity towards something that is more in line with your actual practice, it can be a little bit overwhelming to think about how you want to navigate social media. And so the first thing that I always say is to just pick one, maybe two platforms that you can really engage with and focus all of your energy towards that. So like for artists, you know, like I don't really think people are using Facebook a whole lot anymore. I think Instagram is really where you want to be. And then YouTube would be another really great place for you to invest in if you're going to be making videos about your work and so forth. And so when it comes to actual tactical stuff, what I really like to do is think about, you know, like what your quote unquote topics are going to be. So think about your practice and think about some of the things that make you stand out as an artist. And then through that, develop topics. Like, so for example, you know, if you're setting up a weekly calendar, day one might be image of a completed work. Day two might be quick behind the scenes video. Day three might be a photo of something that like inspires you as an artist. And day four might be, you know, a personal image of yourself so that people can put a face to the practice and to the name. And so I think that when you set up social media in that way, so that you know exactly what it is that you're going to be posting more or less every single week, you can create consistency in how you're approaching the development of content and what you're sharing, as well as really establish who you are before your audience. And that's kind of like more on the content side. Beyond that, I think the most important thing that people tend to overlook a lot is engagement. Engagement is absolutely the fastest, most surefire way to grow your audience. So you want to be spending at least an hour on a day on the platform, engaging with like-minded accounts, making sure that you're liking things, commenting on them, following accounts that you're interested in or that do things that are similar to you, maybe tagging them every once in a while if it's relevant, not just for the sake of tagging, because I think that really gets on people's nerves. But just think critically about the ways that you can kind of become part of the conversation on social media versus just passively posting the things, passively posting your own content.
That's really interesting. Having a schedule and then having something to say, right? Something important to share.
Hey, Jean, do you mind if I say something about that?
Oh, go right ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was listening and I heard Nicole say that you know, Facebook might be not the place anymore, and maybe it's shifting to YouTube and Instagram. And you know, I had a long time. Now, granted this was a few years ago, in which Facebook was my #1 generator of sales in the social media realm. And so when it comes to looking at just dollars and cents straight up, right? Whether I moved artwork or not, Facebook was really the #1 driver of those sales. And I've talked to a lot of artists because I do art consultations, and everybody says you have to be on Instagram, but I haven't heard artists say, I've made all this money from Instagram. How do you, and not just you, Nicole, but the whole panel, how do you feel about that? Is Instagram or YouTube actually generating sales for artists, or is it the tried and true, like the old school Facebook model?
I can start if you want me to.
Sure, go for it.
There is a lot of data out there, so there's a lot to unpack here with the social media platforms, because you know that there are a ton starting, you know, that pop up every now and again, some that make it big, you know, like TikTok is a big thing now, but are people monetizing that? I don't know. I don't really know if they're doing that right now. But I would say that on our perspective, Facebook is still the #1 platform. It is the most used platform in all of social media. I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but there are 2 billion people on Facebook. Facebook owns Instagram, and they own what was the other one they own, Angela?
What's that?
Yeah, well, anyway, they own basically everything now. So I would say Facebook still is relevant, especially with their analytics and insights that you can see with Facebook business opening. You can really narrow down your audience to reach those people who are purchasing your work. Because, for instance, I've bought pieces of artwork. I recently got a commission made for my son's room from an artist on Facebook. I know that people are making those things happen, but they just really have to concentrate on learning about all the different things that Facebook can do for you, you know? As far as Instagram, for visuals, that's a no-brainer. Everybody should be on Instagram using it. I do have some stats for people. Over a third of the users are mobile users, and they are there to purchase. And so 70% of the people who are on Instagram, who are specifically looking for brands, will actually purchase on the platform. And you can also purchase on Facebook as well. So as far as YouTube goes, that's another can of worms that I'll let Angela go into, just so I don't take over the whole conversation. But YouTube is where I think everybody needs to concentrate their time right now as a creative person, because that is a wonderful platform for people to monetize multiple streams of income, passive income and active income. So, Angela.
Well, to go back to answer what the original question is also, which is what are the best practices that artists can use for exposure, then also referencing to what Ed was asking. It also, I believe it depends on your medium and the outcome you're looking to achieve from that. So I think what Jessica was speaking upon is that as business owners, we're able to utilize something like a Facebook to get analytics and give that to an advertiser. And then as far as an artist and a creative, like Jessica stated, it's so important to create your profile online on the social media world so that you can eventually achieve sales. And it really depends on what you're looking for as a creative and what's the best platform. So for example, if a YouTube is a great platform, but if you're not going to be creating constant videos and content that is something that people are going to watch all the time, that may not be the best platform for you. The cool thing about YouTube is you can monetize off it, and it is a real money maker. They show stats such as there's 1.9 billion people that use YouTube. So it's something that you can use between getting monetized videos, Google ads, affiliate links. You can lead people to your products. It is a data aggregator to connect further, and you can achieve brand sponsorships and partnerships. So those are the things as a creative person you have to really consider and decide which platform are you going to achieve the best results off of, because each platform can offer something different. Or if you want to be on all of them, you know, you can use that to your advantage as well.
I would say with the YouTube, just to add to that, musicians should really consider putting their music onto YouTube, because as of January, 93% of the most watched videos on YouTube are music videos. So they should just consider that. And also that YouTube is actually the second biggest search engine next to Google. So whenever you search something like, I don't know, how to create a piece of abstract art. Let's just say somebody wants to try to do something and you Google it. The videos that show up underneath are going to be the videos from YouTube. So maybe you're one of the artists that shows your expertise in creating abstract work and how somebody could do it in their own home. And that leads to the data aggregation, getting their emails, getting the conversation started, getting them to be one of your fans by creating real conversations and showing your personality. So, you know, it really, like what you said, Angela, it really depends on what it is you're trying to achieve. If you're just trying to achieve brand awareness, that's one thing. But if you're trying to make direct sales, it's a totally different one. But all the information is out there if you just take the time to research, and a lot of it is free.
That's amazing. I just want to jump in really quickly and remind our audience that you're watching Artserve Live. This is our social media secrets, and we've got Art Hive magazine. We've got Nicole from, Nicole, where is it again?
Culture Conductor.
Culture Conductor, right there on the tip of my tongue. I knew it, but I didn't want to say the wrong thing. So we want you guys to please, our audience at home, you're on Zoom, you're on Facebook, write your questions in. We want to take your questions. We want to take your comments and send it right to the panel. And with that, Ryan, I just want to ask you, has cyberspace provided any questions or comments so far for our panel?
No questions.
No questions as of just yet.
No questions.
Some comments about Facebook that let's see.
Too much info to digest, someone just said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
yeah.
It's a lot. We
And,
could have conversations just on one platform for an hour.
Yeah, and you know, that's the key. That's one of the reasons we wanted to have this conversation tonight, is because depending on your level of professionalism and how dedicated you are to your practice and how much time you have on your hands, social media can be time consuming, really overwhelming. I mean, I'm hearing you talk about the analytics and the data and all the aggregated information that comes from YouTube. And I understand it, but I know that maybe not a lot of people do. They are huge huge items to understand. And I think that as artists, it's important to educate ourselves, to talk to people who know what they're doing. We've talked in the past about maybe hiring people that know how to do these things, even if you start with someone who maybe does it on a lower scale and helps you to grow your audience and move up. There are varying levels of support at varying costs. What would you say to someone who is maybe trying to get into a gallery or trying to get representation, and a visual artist? Because I mean, that's my world, that's where we live. So you have a visual artist who comes to you and says, how do I get attention? What am I supposed to do in this 2 billion people using Facebook? You know, what are some ways that they can be authentic and use the platform without being overwhelmed, without being run over by the machine? Do you have any ideas for that?
I think we should go to Nicole to kick off that question.
I think.
So there's, you know, that's primarily, I think, the reason why I really don't think Facebook is as relevant in regards to brand recognition. Like, I don't really work with a ton of artists who are using either platform to make sales. We're really more working with artists who are using either platform for brand awareness and recognition. And so Instagram also provides analytics if you're a business profile, and you can see on the back end what type of growth and engagement you're getting, right? But when it comes to, you know, cutting through the noise and making sure that you are getting some kind of brand recognition, I think that's where engagement really makes a difference, right? So, and this can be kind of engagement that you're thinking about translating from real life to the social media realm as well. You know, a lot of the people that maybe you interact with in real life, a lot of the studios or museums or galleries that have larger platforms that you perhaps visit or work with or try and be involved in, those are the kinds of people that you want to be engaging with on social media, and perhaps using social media as a springboard through which you can engage with them more meaningfully in person. And so I really tend to focus on engagement and as a rule of thumb, because I think that it's the quickest way to get your work noticed. And always kind of bearing in mind that engagement alone won't be enough. You also have to think about the type of content that you're putting out and whether it's relevant to the people you're trying to engage with.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think that perhaps Artserve and Culture Conductor maybe have different kinds of clients as well, right? Different focuses, different strategies, different goals. I think that perhaps Artserve, like you said, you mentioned you work with Facebook a lot with your clients because, you know, maybe there's money for ads and there's a different kind of focus. And I think that Nicole works a lot with building a community on a single platform. So both, I mean, all of this is valid and information and helpful for us trying to figure out what our paths are. You know, for everyone on the talk today, figuring out what is going to be most useful for their own paths. So Artserve, why don't you guys talk a little bit about that too?
Angela, you want to start?
Just being authentic and finding your people and, you know, not having $800 a month for ads. How do you connect? What is your suggestion? Maybe Facebook you want to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mean how do we connect as a business? I just want to make sure to answer it correctly.
Well, talking to the people that are watching us tonight, what are some ways that they can cut through the noise and really be authentic and make an impact on showing people who they are without being run over by a truck?
Yeah, the social media truck you're saying. It's intense. It's definitely something that you have to have a lot of patience with, and you cannot expect quick results and or get frustrated by not seeing what you want within doing something, you know, for let's say a couple of weeks, you know, because that is something that naturally happens. It takes social media as an investment, and it's a time investment and something to always remember. And I heard this in a talk I was watching somewhere, but this is a really important point. You know, we don't own social media, right? So what does that mean? We don't own Facebook, we don't own Instagram, we don't own YouTube, we don't own these platforms. So as much as we strive also to be really efficient and be on these platforms, we have to remember that, you know, anything can happen at any time. So the point being there, if we're using these different platforms in ways to build up yourself as a creative person, you want to also be capturing an audience via emails and via ways, newsletters, and connecting with people as a whole, because authenticity is key. And I know you mentioned this before, but people want to understand you. And then you also have to understand your audience. Who is your audience on social media? Are, you know, businesses watching you? Are artists like you watching you? So you need to understand that, and then you can tailor your content to your audience and what their needs are.
And I know, I just want to touch quickly on, we had mentioned, we wanted to talk a little bit about messages like Black Lives Matter and other messages that come up. The COVID-19 has been a big deal, social distancing. I mean, this last few months have been challenging for people who understand marketing and messaging and how to communicate clearly. So,
and the idea of being authentic also is important with these messages.
yeah, so how do we not be afraid to say, I mean, how do we approach it? Do we not? Do we just do what everybody else does and put a little picture up and keep going? How do we approach that and being authentic? And it's not just, you know, not just one subject. I mean, in general, how do we talk about hard things when we're trying to be a business and we're trying to present ourselves as professionals? What do you suggest? Who do we look to for guidance?
Yeah, most artists have a sense of responsibility about these things. So they want their audience to understand where they stand, right, and what they're doing with their work or in their own lives to be able to kind of walk through this. So what kind of messaging can we put out there?
Well, I think I want to start with that.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
And just say that it depends on what your intention really is. And I feel that if, as an artist, if there's somebody who is cultivating an audience and they are cultivating collectors and sales opportunities and, you know, work with galleries, and they have a ecosystem of revenue streams that come in from various areas, and they're being seen by multiple people on their social media outlets. They're no longer selling a product. They're selling their integrity. They're selling their brand identity. They're selling their brand position, right? And they really need to think very carefully whether they want to even say anything right up front, because we've seen a lot of people, like you said, they put the banner up, their icon, they change their profile picture, they change their profile header, and that's all well and good, but are they saying the right thing? Are they turning off their audience? And are they seen as authentic in the communication of that message? Is it going to impact them negatively by saying the wrong phrase, right? Or appealing to the wrong audience? So this gets more into a consideration of public relations, right? But I would say that artists should be mindful before they press the post button exactly what their intention is, and will this impact their business long-term as far as partnerships, revenue, expansion, their ability to get into galleries that they thought they would have entree to until they hit that post button. I think there's a lot to consider there beyond just the moment, but that's just me. That's my take.
Yeah. Thank you.
So let me ask you, is remaining silent acceptable?
I think there's a difference between remaining silent and knowing when to be quiet, because it's not, your opinion is not relevant and neither is your experience. So I think that you have to walk that fine line. And I think that allyship and I think that most artists feel some sense of duty to empathize with people who are oppressed systemically or who are facing issues that are unfair. And you know, as an artist, I think you stand in a very different position than a corporation or a business or a normal business, because your identity is very much mixed up within your work. And I think that most artists feel that way, right? Most of the things that you put out into the world are a piece of you. And so I think that you, in these moments, it's not just about posting an image or you know, expressing your solidarity, but rather thinking critically about how you can participate in a movement or a moment in a moment in a way that uplifts others and elevates others who perhaps need it more than you, or who perhaps have a message that you believe in and care about. I don't think it needs to be something that alienates people. I don't think it has to be political. I don't think it has to be anything other than exactly what it is, which is that you want to uplift, elevate, and support others who are struggling with something that you think they should not be struggling with anymore.
I like it.
Agreed.
We just got a comment from Jill Lefkowitz on Facebook, and she asks, can you give an example of what not to post? But I think what Nicole said was so apt about, you know, maybe it's not your experience. Maybe it's not your time to speak on this subject. And my response that I was typing this was, is what you're saying contrived? Is it a performance? Is it something that you're doing just because you see a neighborhood or a community doing it? Or is this your real, true, authentic brand position? Because we're talking about the difference between a personal feeling and then broadcasting to the entire world a position that will represent you for eternity online. And I think that's why I say it's really important to consider what your message and your result, your desired result is before you hit that post button. Jesse or Angela, I'd love to hear your take on that.
Sure, I'll go on that. I think that as long as, you know, you're not being too polarizing either way, unless that's what your business is and your art goes one way or another, I think really knowing your audience is what's important here. You know, what can you get away with? What does your audience want to see? For example, our Artserve audience, we've over the years really curated a specific type of person. We know that they react differently to different posts. So they love memes. They love anything that has to do with the environment, conscious stories. They love art. They love uplifting things. They don't particularly like negative, horrible stories. And, you know, you kind of have to gauge what it is that you're getting away with. You're not always going to be having everybody, you know, on your side or agreeing with things, but it doesn't mean that that's not okay. You know, it's good to have different opinions and conversations going. And I didn't want to get too much off the subject, but I was thinking, just to add to this, I have ADHD, like adult ADHD, and I'm medicated. And also being an artist and be a creative person, what we're talking about today is incredibly multifaceted, and there's a lot to unpack. And I think we're throwing a lot of information out there to everyone. So I wanted to make sure that everyone listening and very and interacting with us a lot, I see on Facebook, they're interacting with us, actually leave here with something that maybe they could grow off of and merging together everything we've been speaking about, because everyone is giving such awesome points. Something that has helped us personally with Arthive and in our own Facebook pages and Instagram and everything is something called an 80-20 rule. So there's an 80-20 rule in social media. There's one in marketing specifically, but it could also be used for artists to spend their time using the 80-20 rule. So what that means is, as far as your time management, it helps me. If you can think about spending 80% of the time honing in on your craft, creating your art, I'm just going to say a painter, so someone creating their painting, then 20% of the time should be spent on learning about your audience, marketing, and doing the business side, because most artists, at least the ones that we run into, do not want to deal with the marketing. And that's okay if you don't want to make sales, if you're independently wealthy and you don't care. But if you do want to reach out and be with people who enjoy purchasing your work and to help you further sales and further your business, then it's a good idea for you to spend some time on your marketing. So it's easy just to wrap your head around, 5 days. Let's say you only work 5 days in a week. 1 day out of the week, you just concentrate on the business stuff. The other 4 days, you concentrate on doing your work. You can wrap your mind around that. And then you have the 2 other days in the week to rest and do all the normal things that we have to do, like cleaning the house and grocery shopping and everything. And so as far as the social media aspect goes, it's good to think about posting the same way, because really social media is like your personality, and a good way to connect with people with your personality. So a good way of thinking about it is that 80% of your posts should be focused on educating, entertaining, informing your audience, and the other 20% can be concentrated on the actual product that you're delivering, so you don't turn people off. And a good way of seeing if that is true is by going onto different Instagram accounts, different Facebook accounts, and seeing how much interaction they have, because it doesn't matter necessarily if an account has 250,000 followers, 1 million followers, if they have zero interaction, if they're having nobody interacting with them or creating a relationship with them. So the most important thing is to remember your engagement. If your audience is small, it doesn't matter. Work off of that small audience, because in that small audience, they could be the ones that are helping you by purchasing your work, by spreading the word. You have your super fans instead of just worrying about getting everybody out there. So really kind of breaking up when you post, what you're posting, even on a piece of paper, doing a content calendar will really help you get organized in that way, because it's really overwhelming. I mean, it's overwhelming for me. It's overwhelming for Angela. I mean, we have multiple people working on this because it's all like going into little universes, So piggybacking off of what Nicole said too, just concentrate on one or two platforms. You don't need to be on all of them. Maybe you just pick one that you like, So
Absolutely.
Hopefully that answered something.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much information that we don't want anyone who's watching right now to feel overwhelmed.
Right.
We admit, and I think I speak for the panel when this is a large universe, particularly when it comes to all of the platforms and then all the nuances of each platform. But I think the first thing that we said was start with one and dive in and then expand from there. And speaking of expansion, I want to expand the conversation to the online space. And I want to ask Ryan, our amazing producer, if she has comments or questions coming in from Facebook and Zoom.
I do. I have some comments on Zoom. Does anyone have any advice to artists as to what percentage of marketing dollars they should spend on social media, etc., to include entering art shows and openings and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, I'm happy to dive in and say, as the co-op marketing manager and here at Artserve, I have the pleasure of spending other people's money, and a lot of it's on social media advice. And so from nonprofits, big and small, from huge budgets to micro budgets, we have to make sure that we're getting the best bang for each dollar for cultural nonprofit organizations and for individual artists. And so for people out there who are worried about, oh my God, I don't have $500. I don't have $1,000. It's okay. Now, the panel might disagree with me on this, but my view is even a dollar beats no dollar any day of the week. If that's all you have, $1 a day, spend it. If you have a campaign, you have an art opening that's coming up in 3 weeks, and you can only do $1 a day for 3 weeks, do it. You will expand your pool of viewers way more than your organic reach, which I think you're going to get. If you do it organic, you're going to get 2 people out of every 100. And if you do it with paid, you're going to get potentially thousands, even at $1 a day. I would definitely say, don't worry about how big your budget is. Just make sure you're spending something. But I just want to say one more thing about money. Your social media ad buy should not stand alone. You should be working with other services, paid email, right, services to pair your messages together and create continuity across multiple platforms. You should be, if you have a larger budget, if you do have $1,000 or $2,000, maybe you can afford retargeting. Maybe you can afford more niche products that are in the digital space that can help you expand your touch. And with that, I want to turn it over to the panel. Nicole, do you agree? Do you feel like what I'm saying is right on, or do you have your own opinion?
Well, I think that if the question is how much of my money do I devote to paid ads on social media, I think that before you go ahead and jump into that world, you think really critically about what you want the outcome to be. And if you don't necessarily know the outcome, think a little bit more critically about other benefits that it can yield. And definitely don't do it until you've had a chance to really understand how it works, right? Because it is a little bit nuanced. It's not just a matter of like, here's $1 a day to post this wide audience, right? Like you can be a little bit more targeted and a little bit more specific about the types of people you're trying to reach. And so I would suggest that you do some research preliminarily to understand like who that audience is and who you want them to be, and then think about the ways that you can reach them on social media through there. And honestly, like if you are an artist and you are still emerging and you kind of want to grow a following digitally, maybe think about ways that you can drive a digital ad buy towards some type of in-person interaction, whether it's getting them to come into a show or getting them to come to an event that you're participating in. I feel like building meaningful connections with people that eventually turn into sales is often beyond the social media realm, especially if you are making work that's highly conceptual, or if you feel like the work that you're making is a little bit more on the expensive side. I think people are much more inclined to purchase original artwork at a higher price tag if they actually know that person and have interacted with them in real life. So if you're thinking about digital ad buys, maybe think about the ways that you can translate them to other mediums. And certainly email newsletters, I think, just from every organization that I've ever worked at, email is almost always my biggest asset. So you could even run a digital ad campaign that focuses on getting people to sign up for your newsletter. And then you get them into a totally different funnel and experience than one that's just on social media where they're being bombarded with messages all the time.
I absolutely agree. Email's huge. And when you do it in concert, in continuity with a social media message or maybe branded message, paid by, it could be invaluable as a team effort. Angela or Jesse, what do you think?
I agree with both you and Nicole, or you both said everything that I probably would have said. The only other thing I could think of, so I don't repeat all the great information you guys gave, was to consider that if you want people to spend money on you, you probably should spend money on yourself. And so, like Ed said, it can be as small as $1 a day. That adds up over time, because what you're doing on social media is building. You don't instantly go in with thousands upon thousands of followers. You have to build a nice foundation, and then you grow from there. So if you want people to spend money on you, be willing to spend it on yourself. And also take note, and I'm not sure about how these other platforms apply, but specifically to Facebook, organically, unfortunately, about only 20% of your audience will actually see your content that you post. So we are living in a world that is a pay to play situation. If you are looking to reach out for people that you want them to see your content, even just spending a couple dollars can yield a lot of interactions and a lot of followers. And there's a lot of little tips behind there. There's also something called Facebook Blueprint. If you got anyone's interested in learning about that, that's a free resource you can do to learn. And Instagram has learning academies, and so does YouTube. So don't be afraid to go and do that. You can also invest in LinkedIn Learning for a monthly fee, and you can take courses on there by professionals that will teach you the ins and outs of social media. It just takes time, and once you invest that time, you'll reap the rewards.
Wow, that was amazing.
Thank you. So, do we have time for another question?
Are there questions from the audience? Comments?
Guys, I say go for it. We have a robust audience on Zoom and Facebook who are seeking our advice, and I think, you know, if we throw in another question, I'm not sure if I'm speaking for the panel, but I think, you know, we could go for one more. Sure.
Okay. So for Angela and Jesse, I'm an artist and I'm trying to get out there, and I want to get the attention of Artserve. How do I do that through my social media? How can I get your attention?
Angela, you want to answer?
Sure. The first way you can do it, if you're doing it through social media, we do have hashtags on Instagram. We have hashtag Artserve Media, and we go through that and we'll watch to repost content.
Artserve Magazine. Artserve Magazine. You said Artserve Media.
Did I? I'm sorry. Artserve Magazine. And then a traditional way is to email us and send us your content. Also, I'll add an asterisk next to that. You know, if you think about this from a publishing point of view, I have to rotate content, and I want to try to put out content I maybe never have seen before, maybe my audience has not seen before. So anything you can do to add a twist, to add something unique, to add something special will get my attention. You know, we get a lot of the same emails over and over again. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the same kind of art coming in, but you have to think about it how I think about it, which is I have to keep my audience engaged as much as I can. So if you put on my hat and think about it in that manner, you might be able to come up with something unique and different to get my attention, so that we can say, hey, we need to put this in an interview, put this in the magazine, put this on Instagram. But also to never give up. Never assume that an answer is a no. Always be persistent and always follow up continually, because that also gets someone's attention. And that's for anybody in publishing and media.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We're winding down, and there's one really important question that we wanted to add to this mix right before, you know, we want to let everyone go. You know, we could be talking about this till next Tuesday, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of topics to talk about, and there's a lot of things. But the last question we want to pose, and this is for all of you, we want to know, you know, what's the secret sauce? As Iggy likes to say, what's your golden nugget of advice for artists of all disciplines as they are thinking about social media or diving into it? What's, like, the 80-20 was a fantastic rule. What other kind of things can you tell us as we kind of close off this conversation?
There are too many to say. I will, if everybody wants to get a piece of paper and a pencil out, I'll start spitting out anything that pops into my mind. I'll just start rattling things off. I know we have a lot of very specific questions, but I would say try to create a content calendar for yourself. Content calendar just lays out your social media posts. You can place the 80-20 rule on, you can use that rule on your content calendar. There's somebody that wrote about when the specific days, the best days to publish on certain platforms. I think I saw the best days to publish on Facebook would be Thursdays and Fridays. They have the highest engagement. I think somebody mentioned it on Instagram as well. I believe it's also Thursdays. Angela, or I don't know if you guys, yeah, it's okay. So like Thursdays are the best days. Let me see. I can give off some different resources if you didn't get enough today. If you want to check out any of your own social media analytics, learn a little bit more about how that works, learn about what marketers use, you can go on socialblade.com. You can see what other real-time analytics are from competitors and maybe people who are doing what you want to do, because the best thing to do is steal like an artist, right? Like Austin Kleon said, you check out what other people are doing. You're going to do it differently, so it's not really like you're stealing, but you can check out what they're doing. So socialblade.com. If you want to start getting into the YouTube space, which is like a 5-hour thing that we could get into, but we don't have the time. So tubefilter.com is an awesome resource, and you can get into everything about YouTube on there, TubeFilter. Socialmediaexaminer.com, HubSpot.com, socialsprout.com, and Reddit. I mean, I go on Reddit for just about anything to see what people are up to. And if you are overwhelmed by social media, the organization of it all, you can go to Hootsuite, organizes stuff for you, and you can pay the service, and it organizes it for you and disseminates your information across platforms at a specific time. Let's see, there's a site called BuzzSumo that actually tells you what people are listening to, what kind of content is being researched on Facebook. And there's 2 of them that I recently thought was pretty awesome. Let me see if I can remember. Okay, I think I wrote it down. Keyhole.co, not com, keyhole.co actually tracks real-time keywords and hashtags that people are looking up. So you can see what the internet is speaking about and what they're whispering about. There is one called boardreader.com where you can see, like if you Google yourself, right? And you're an artist and you want to see what people are talking about, that's cool. You can find it on Google. But if you go onto boardreader.com, you can see if your name comes up or your business comes up on message boards and like different platforms like that. So if people are actually talking about you on Reddit, then you can see your name will come up there. And I don't think most people know about that. And there are plugins that you can use for YouTube that will also help you with analytics called TubeBuddy and vidIQ. I'm sure I have a lot more that I could rattle off, but I don't want to take over the conversation.
Thank you so much for that. I think the bottom line is there are a lot of tools out there for us if we just dedicate a little bit of time just to educate ourselves and train and just really stick to it. Nicole, what about you? What's your golden nugget tonight?
I think, posting, there's so much to delve into on the analytics side. And depending on where you are in your social media journey, you might feel like it's very overwhelming to think about. And so if you are kind of in that more beginning stage as artists, what I would suggest is you focus on posting often and making sure that every image you post has something that is intriguing enough to want to get people to stop and look at it and engage with it and like it or comment on it. pay attention to the things that do get you a lot of likes and comments and give people more of that. And think about ways that you can amplify the content that you are posting by both planning for it and engaging with other people. So maybe collaborate with other people on social media, maybe share other people's work that you like on your social media. Just think about ways that, you know, you invite others to either return the favor and amplify your platform, or just make sure that it's compelling and authentic and a representation of who you are as an artist.
Thank you. Excellent suggestion. Thank you.
Wow.
Angela,
Awesome.
go ahead, Ed. Ed's just
Oh, no, I was just saying that was awesome.
yeah.